unrecognizable to you? If so, you're not alone. The press is under attack. This week, protesters got 50-year prison sentences for essentially exercising their free speech rights, and the government is exercising police force in ways that are reminiscent of countries outside of America until now. About a year ago, I asked a friend of mine who is a journalist I have enormous respect for. She's expert in technology. I asked her, what can journalists do to keep themselves safe when they're reporting critically on the government? And she said, guess what? I am writing a book on that and more, interviewing dissidents around the world on how they have managed to resist their authoritarian governments, speak up, organize, and engage in safe resistance. And I can't believe it's been a year already. Julia Angwin is out with her book, and she is my guest today. Julia is a Pulitzer Prize winning investigative journalist and the co author of the new book, On Courage: How to Be a Dissident in an Age of Fear. Hi, Julia.
Oh my gosh, it's so great to be here with you.
I can't believe that was a year ago. It's like time moves so fast. It's
It
bizarre.
does,
These
and yet also, I feel I aged 10 years in that year.
I know. It's like the weirdest
Yes.
uh dichotomy. Um can I just ask, while people should know this, in addition to being a journalist who's publishing all the time and writing a book, you have is it a professorship or a residency at Harvard where you're helping with the creator economy and independent journalists? Tell people a little bit about what you do.
Yeah, I just started this new project at Harvard Kennedy School in January called the Independent Media and Audience Project. And really, it is tied in a little bit with the book. So the book is a deep dive into like how do you resist authoritarianism. And one of the things I learned in that reporting is that actually media is really key to resistance. The fact is that authoritarians, like their wish list number 1, 2, and 3 is to take control of the media. You see that in all of Putin, in Hungary. This is the thing that authoritarians want to do. They want to control the narrative. And there is always if there is resistance, it always comes through independent media, smaller channels that can't be co-opted essentially by the state. And one
Mm.
thing I think that I just felt like I noticed as a journalist and also in the academic lens on journalism was that all of the way that we were treating the creator economy was just like, oh, look at these cute kids doing cute stuff, or look at these bad kids spreading lies on these platforms. How can we find and quash them? Right. And I wanted to take a different approach, which is like, how can we bolster this last aspect of adversarial, fearless journalism that's happening? The reason it's happening is because it's reader supported. Like,
Mhm.
that gives you such power, right? Because you can't be controlled by the state. And so I am starting this project to support the independent creator economy, the quality parts of it, right?
Right.
And to understand it and map it out more. And so it's been a little bit crazy doing closing a book, launching a center at the same time.
Seems like a lot.
Yes.
But our time's called for it. I'm so excited you're doing that. I call us, the people who do the kind of work I do, evidence-based content
Yes.
creators, whether it's in science or health or news or politics. And I would love to have you back another time to talk about your work there. So let's plan to do that.
Absolutely.
Okay. Let's today, though, talk about the book. I know that you interviewed more than 100 dissidents and movement leaders from around the world and here in the US. And I thought we'd start with your choice of words. And you decided to write about dissidents, not, you didn't use the word activist or protesters. What does that word choice say about where you think we are in America today?
Yeah, I think we have an idea in the US, I certainly did, that dissidents were like a kind of a foreign thing. They happened in other countries. They were people resisting authoritarianism and they were heroes, right? Like you read about them in books. It was Gandhi and Nelson Mandela, etc. Um, what I found was that dissidence is a little bit more of a practice. It's about fighting for your values when you're surrounded by a state or a culture that is trying to basically change those values. And
Mm.
that holding tight to your values amidst that kind of sea change is actually really the practice that we call dissidence. Now, I would say that dissident is not a perfect word. Like we struggled with whether to use it. It's a
Why?
shorthand. Well, because almost every dissident that you interview says, I'm not a dissident. They just say, I'm just fighting for the values that I think are important.
That seems to go to this larger point you make, which is people who do what look to us like courageous things in other countries often don't experience themselves as heroes or people who plan to do courageous things. They just can't tolerate what's happening and feel they have to take action. Yeah?
Yeah, essentially what we found was that people come to some sort of breaking point where they're just like, I'm being asked to be complicit in something that I cannot live with myself
Mhm.
for, even though I know the consequences for not going along with it are going to be maybe high, right? But there's a certain tipping point for people, which we call the moral collision, where they just can't do it anymore. Whatever it is, they can't walk by the ICE detention center and see the misery there and not try to do something about it. They can't like go along with their university that wants to completely be allowing the state to censor academic work, right? They whatever it is, they suddenly reach a point where they're like, "No, I'm going to have to do this." And they usually say, "Look, I'm not a courageous person. I don't want to do this. I don't feel brave, but I can't live with myself if I don't."
Yeah, and what you're helping with is that doesn't have to be like a rash, impulsive move. You can be a little bit considered about how you make these choices.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's a values-based thing. It's not so much an impulse thing, and so when you're talking about your values and how you wanna express them, you do have some strategic leeway, right? Like, do you want to join with your faith community and all of you do something together, and you know what I mean? Like, there's choices you can make within that.
So I want to get some practical, make this a little practical. For somebody who wants to attend a peaceful protest in the US, but is worried about surveillance or arrest, what should they know and how should they prepare?
Such a good question, right? So there's actually so as you and I as our discussion started, right? A year ago, I really went into this project thinking I'm going to learn the absolute best tips and tricks for like how to protect yourself. And I really thought those tips and tricks were going to be technological, and some of them are. But actually the real trick is other people. Other people are who protect you. Having your lawyer's name written and phone number written on your arm in a Sharpie so you can call them from jail if you're arrested is and having friends who you're keeping in touch with through Signal while you're at an event to make sure they know you're up to date, like where you are. These are actually the kinds of things that keep people safe. Other people keep each other safe because ultimately, when it comes to state violence against people who are trying to protest, they just literally can't take all of you. So you have to like be in
Right.
communication with all the people. And so some of the tips that just practically I would say, like, you should use encrypted messaging. Signal is best in class. WhatsApp is okay as well. And one thing that I think is important is if you're going to take film at an event, which you should film, it's for your own protection, but also to bear witness to any kind of state violence. Um, it's sometimes best to do it in the Signal app, the camera there, because then it doesn't store on your camera roll. So you're broadcasting it live to your chat group. So you set up a chat group beforehand. You keep texting to your friends who are not there. I'm here, I'm this, sending videos so that they get them and they store them. But if your phone is taken, there's nothing on your camera roll.
Oh.
Yeah, and the other thing that's really important is Signal and some of the more secure apps, like there's one called Trello that's also basically built for this exact purpose of
Trello, Trello.
yeah, it's for it's secure video recording, and those apps have also a PIN that they can't be opened unless you put in a PIN number. Now, Signal, it's optional, you have to sign up. You turn it on, and I recommend everyone should turn that on because a lot of times the threat here is that the police take your phone. And if you have facial recognition, they hold it up to
Yeah,
your
they hold
face
it.
and then it unlocks. So first of all, turn that off. But secondly, even if they take it and they say, "What's your PIN number?" You might be tempted to tell them because they're going to make your life really miserable until you
Mhm.
tell them. So, um, don't have them like have a PIN number for the app. So even if they get into your phone, they still can't get into the
That's smart.
apps. Do you know what I mean?
That's smart.
Yeah.
And
WhatsApp has a really cool thing, by the way, where you can have a chat that's hidden. So even if they get into WhatsApp, they can't see the chat. It's sort of a secret chat that doesn't show up in your list of chats, which is also a really cool thing. So your group of people that you're with, that you're communicating with, could be in an unlisted chat in WhatsApp.
And that's what you mark it as unlisted. That's the lingo inside
Um,
WhatsApp.
Inside of WhatsApp, there's a setting for each chat has there's a way you can set a setting for that chat. So I
That's
think it would
cool.
still just be called Jessica and Julia, but then you would choose the setting to have it unlisted.
I love this stuff. You had said at the beginning that we should have the number of our lawyer written down. Not everybody has a lawyer. What kind of, like, just any
Oh, yeah.
lawyer?
Well, you just have the Lawyers Guild. So there's the National Lawyers Guild. I'm gonna have to get you the exact name of it, but there's like a
okay.
group of lawyers who volunteer to help for this stuff. And so you don't have to have your own lawyer. You just have to have the Lawyers Guild in your local town, like the New Jersey or the New York or the California or the LA Guild.
Okay, that's great to know. For people who decide they want to organize in some way without creating a digital trail, are there steps they can take to reduce their digital footprint? And is there anything an ordinary person should know for reliable digital security if they're starting to gather, say you're working for a federal agency and you want to start gathering information about what's going on?
I mean, the most important thing is sort of a philosophical thing, which is compartmentalization. We all have our lives so intermingled, right? On our phone, we have our work stuff and our personal stuff, and that is actually really dangerous. And so one thing that is important is having separate compartments. So separate email address that you use for your personal that's different than your work, separate folders of documents. Like I wouldn't use the same Google Drive for work stuff or personal stuff, because the threat you're worried about is there's two, legal and technical. So the legal threat is actually pretty significant. This administration, as you mentioned, has just been prosecuting protesters left and right. I mean, this prosecutions in Texas where people got 50 to 100-year sentences is just mind-boggling. If this happened in another country, it would be front page news in the US about that regime.
Isn't it
right?
shocking that it's not getting more
I can't believe
outrage
it's not
coverage?
getting more
I know.
coverage. I honestly just when I saw that, I felt like the bottom fell out of my stomach. And
Me too.
the thing is, I feel like I'm pretty hardened at this point, and I still just
Yeah.
could not believe. But so legal risk is actually a really big risk. And so the legal risk is you don't want them to get all of your messages because they need something to hang you on, right? A lot of these prosecutions they're kind of fishing expeditions, right? Like they know that the First Amendment protects your right to protest, so they have to get you on something else. This is, the Trump administration's whole game with going after Jim Comey for putting shells on a beach or whatever, right? Like they have to find random things to go after people for. So part of it is just the compartmentalization means that when they get some sort of discovery order from a court, that they only get to look at your work emails, or like that order only compels discovery in one part of your life. And then technically also, if they try to get into one of your accounts by going to the Google and saying, I need all of, Jessica's Gmail account. Well, hopefully you've been using Proton Mail for all of your sort of organizing activity, right? So having separate silos is actually one of the most important strategies for defense.
Okay, that's such good practical. I have one other practical question, then we'll get into the larger stuff. If someone fears retaliation from the government or an employer, how do they assess the risk, document what's happening, and prepare themselves for possible fallout? That sounds like a very broad question, but I think it's something that you address.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is happening a lot, right? Like, I mean, as soon as the Trump administration came in, right, they started, breaking things at all of the federal administration agencies. And a lot of brave workers there started trying to document it, filming things, keeping records, keeping logs. And that is dangerous work. Many of them were fired for it, but they also got evidence has been used in court. And that evidence has actually pushed back some of the decisions and executive orders that were issued have been rolled back in part because of these evidence. And so it is incredibly important work, the work of bearing witness to crime, essentially, right? Just like holding up a camera and filming when the police are beating someone is it's the same thing. These are the ways that we have as citizens to hold the government accountable. It's always going to be risky. And so the most important thing, again, is compartmentalization. And also not doing anything illegal. You have the right to look at documents, but you I wouldn't recommend doing that with classified documents, but a lot of the
Right.
things that people were bringing to light were not. They were just like crimes that were being committed, and you have the right to do that. And there are ways to do it legally. There's whistleblower aid protection groups who will provide you legal advice that is really helpful to help navigate those situations. So I don't know that I want to give like a full playbook because every situation is different,
Yeah.
but it's really important to understand some of the principles here, which is like, what are you doing? You are trying to bear witness to crime. And when you are doing that, you have to keep yourself safe by doing it as correctly and legally as possible within the bounds of your employment. And you also have to understand that you may be fired for it.
But then you could consult like a pro bono attorney for some legal guidance in that case.
Yes, especially for, like the whistleblower statutes are not terrible. I mean, in this country, they're pretty good. And so there are groups like the Signals org or Whistleblower Aid that help whistleblowers, and they will provide pro bono support. They are,
Great.
of course, overwhelmed, but it's worth consulting with them.
You've said, and I don't know if we've covered this, but you've said that courage can be planned for. What does that mean? And how does somebody prepare now to act when the moment comes later? Is it anything beyond what we've discussed?
I mean, it depends, right? Like, there's actually like it depends on what kind of courage we're talking about. But when it comes to civil resistance, going to the streets, actually, there is a whole literature and practice around practicing, right? The people at the Montgomery bus boycott or the sit-ins in the South, where they were trying to desegregate and they sat in at the lunch counters, they practiced for 2 years in like little underground church training centers where they would practice having the state come after them and blow smoke in their face and hit them on the head. And they practice remaining nonviolent. And it's really important to remember, what are you practicing for? What you're practicing for is not to be violent. Here's why. Because if you do anything, even the tiniest thing to protect yourself, the state will say you were an agitator and you deserved it. And that is the way they win that war. That's how they tell all the moms and dads watching on TV, being like, I don't know, honey, do you think this is bad? You want them to think, no, that was outrageous. The state should not have done that to that person who is nonviolent, right? That was the story of Renee Good and of Alex Preddy, right? Everyone could see on camera they were not acting violent. And so that really turned the tide. That was sort of a moment that was a huge win because the protesters there in Minneapolis, despite being subjected to so much violence, the fact that they were disciplined enough to remain nonviolent was the way that they won and drove ICE out of their city.
Mm-hmm. So I just want to underscore something you said there, which is there's the action you take in the moment and there's the public narrative. And that
Yeah.
so much of the effectiveness of dissidents depends on how effective they are at shaping the public narrative. So part of that is making sure that you engage in nonviolence so they can't say that you're violent. But it's also proactively thinking about what that message really should be.
Yeah, I think so. One of the things is that the message has to be really simple and clear, right? And that's something that is always challenging for resistance movements. There's always factional fighting about what should our message be. But interestingly, the most winning message almost always is just no. No, we do not want. We do
This.
not want this, right? And that's something everyone can get around, right? And so that is what was called negative coalition. And these negative coalitions, like this is a classic thing of the overturn of Milosevic in Serbia, right? He was a dictator. He wouldn't leave office. The people rose up and they were just like, no, you got to go, right? And eventually there were so many millions of people in the street and he had to flee in the middle of the night. This is sort of the way that wins happen.
Mm, it's so interesting. You write that dissidents need to find a political home. What is
Yeah.
that?
Well, the thing is, as I was saying earlier, that actually protecting yourself is kind of a community practice. You can't do it alone. If you're just the lone man standing in front of the Tiananmen tank, right? We've all seen that image.
Yeah.
You get run over, right? So you have to have a whole bunch of people with you. So really, resistance is a community sport, and many of us don't have communities that we've built around that, right? We have our book group and maybe we have our parents group and etc. But we in our gym group, but we don't have like a political gathering space the way that it used to be. People had the Rotary clubs and the Elks,
Yeah.
whatever. Those were political organization, right? We don't really have a practice around that. And one of the things we talk about in the book is that we need that. Those are the building blocks, those groups of people getting together with a shared mission, which is like, we want this to be a better world and we're opposed to this thing that's happening in our community. That's the way, those are the fundamental building blocks that upon which the resistance builds.
One of the things I'm working on is helping News Not Noisers build community groups in their neighborhoods. So I feel like that's part of it. They say that part of resisting authoritarianism and surviving through it is having neighborhood connection anyway.
Absolutely.
Whether you plan to protest or just be involved locally.
You have to. I mean, one of the things is so embarrassing to me is I'm writing this book, learning all this, and I realized I've lived on my street for 15 years and I didn't know my neighbors. So I went down the street and I put flyers on everyone's house and I had a wine and cheese party. And I was like, and actually a good portion of people came and I said, this is how we're going to fight authoritarianism. Actually, it's just wine and cheese parties. And they were like, is that easy? And I was like, yeah, it's that easy. Let's do it.
I love that.
We've had 2 so far. Someone else hosted the next one. I'm going to have another one. Book tour is a little bit interfering with my neighborhood organizing. But it's amazing. And like, you need to know your neighbors because like
totally
the reason you need to know them is because of Minneapolis. Look at what happened, right? One day the tanks are going to roll in and you need to know everyone.
I love that. I'm inspired by you. It's also good motivation to make my backyard look better first. So it's a 2-step
Your
process.
neighbors don't care if your backyard looks good. You can just do it anyways.
Really? Okay.
You should have seen my living room when I invited everyone over. It was totally a mess.
You talk to folks all over the world, and I'm curious what conversations with folks in places like Hong Kong or Cairo taught you, like what they understood about authoritarianism that most Americans maybe still do not. And did any of them tell you that they waited too long to do something, and that what did that cost them?
I think everybody told us they waited too long. Even people who it looks like from our vantage point acted quickly. In Nicaragua, they were talking about how the guy we spoke to there, you know, he was like, they waited too long. It was so far gone, the level of corruption and autocracy, that it was hard by the time he started calling it out to get other people galvanized. And that's actually that's part of what happens these days. So the problem is authoritarianism used to look pretty stark, right? It was like a coup, the military rolled in, they took over, and it was like a big old event and everybody knew it happened. Right?
Yes.
Now it's an election. Some guy comes in and he starts destroying institutions and norms, defying court orders, overriding and ignoring the law, the legislators. That is how authoritarianism happens. It's a new form. They call it competitive authoritarianism. There's different names for it. But essentially, that's the way it looks. And so it's actually really difficult to diagnose. And many dissidents said it's hard to convince other people it's happening. They don't realize it's happening because they're not paying attention, right? Every little thing looks like some weird, annoying, legalistic rule change. Like, oh, there's some fight between the court and the lawmakers. Like, I don't know. It seems complicated, right? And so organizing against it is something you have to do early before they've really fully locked it down. Because the more resistance an authoritarian faces, the harder it is to get their stuff done, especially if they're trying to make it look legal. The more that you can make it look illegal, then
quickly
you're winning the narrative war. You're getting more people on your side who are going to resist the next move.
So then in a practical sense, what are, like, if people are thinking about what can I do? How can I take action? What are some protests that feel satisfying but actually do very little? And what actually imposes a cost by interrupting a system or shifting power?
The most important thing you can do is force whatever institution you're in to be better. So I'm serious. You work at a university that wants to cave to the administration. Organize your colleagues and make a petition and say, don't cave. Embarrass them. Make them feel ashamed. You work for you practice faith at a institution that is just being quiet and not speaking up and not saying like this is wrong, what's happening, that our members are being spirited away in the middle of the night. And you know, you force your other people to sign a letter, make the people at your institution act better. Because the reality is, authoritarianism, they don't have the ability to coerce all these institutions to do things. They have to make it seem just inevitable that yes, of course you should cave and let us oversee your curriculum and fire professors who don't toe the line. No, you have
Make it
to
hard for them.
Make it hard for them. Throw sand in the gears at every turn. So the thing is, I always tell people, look, you think fighting authoritarianism is going out there on the street with a sign, and that is great. You should definitely do that. It's fun, whatever. But the reality is, the way we win is we make it costly. And the way we do that is actually, we can just have a wine and cheese party with our neighbors and write some sternly worded emails and sign a few petitions at our office and boycott some stuff. And actually, we're doing really great work.
Gosh, you make it all sound fun and social.
It is fun. It is
Right.
fun. That a lot of our dissidents said they found purpose and happiness in this work.
So here's a heavy question, but you're the perfect person to answer it. And, I see the value in talking to dissidents in other countries. I see the value in historians telling us that we've been through things like this before and come through it. There is a very important difference right now in America, I think, which is the power of technology and the growing surveillance state to really monitor everything that we're doing. Do you think that there is a parallel for what an authoritarian United States could do and become? And is there a way to stay safe inside that?
Yeah, I think that is what keeps me up at night, right? Like 10 years ago, I wrote a book about privacy and surveillance, and I wrote about all the things I worried about, how maybe the government could start weaponizing all this information that the tech companies were collecting on us. And I went and I actually looked at the Stasi files, the East German secret police, which at the time was kind of the top most intrusive secret police of the Cold War. They had dossiers on almost every citizen. 1 out of 10 East Germans was an informant, and they were everywhere. Everyone was so scared of the Stasi and the secret police. And I looked at those dossiers. I went to Berlin and I got public records requests to open up some files. And let me just tell you, they are nothing compared to what Google has on us, right? It was just like, it was so sad. Like, they would have people tailing these people for days, and then all they would know is like what time they left the house and where they got gas. And I was just like, dude,
Oh my gosh.
we know so much more. And so we are in kind of uncharted territory, right? I call this sort of techno-authoritarianism, which is like the surveillance is supercharged, right? But the thing is, it feels scary. It is scary, but there are just more of us, right? Like, okay, great, fine, follow us all around. But if we're all in the streets demanding your ouster, like, what are you going to do about it? Like, you either have to bring in the tanks and kill us all or not. Like, at some point, we still have the power. We have to always remember that they work for us.
Yeah. And I also remind myself, as scared as we could be of Palantir, they can't find Nancy Guthrie, which is horrifying, and also a reminder that they don't know everything.
Yeah, exactly.
How to marshal horrible information to make you feel better. Okay, let's end here. You write that the resistance requires a much broader definition of we. Are Americans capable of building coalition? And concretely, how do we do it across all our divides? And what is the cause for hope in all that?
I do think this is, there's a term that one of the movement scholars, Maria Stefan, uses to say what you need in resistance is collective stubbornness, right? So joining together in community and saying, no, we are not going to comply with these immoral and unjust acts we're being asked to be complicit in. And I think Americans have a real advantage in stubbornness, right? Like, that is our sweet spot. We're real good. We got it going on. Collective is not our sweet spot. And so we need to work on that. I think it's achievable. I think it's a growth opportunity for America.
Personal development, collective personal development. Yeah.
But I think we can do it. And I think that's why we spend so much of the book on finding your political home, finding other people who you share values with. And I love that you're doing that with your community, because that's exactly what we need.
Well, Julia, you're exactly what we need. I want to encourage everybody to get the book. It's called On Courage: How to Be a Dissident in an Age of Fear. Even though it's about a heavy topic, it's actually quite optimistic and inspiring because it's about agency and making you feel capable of doing all these things and knowing that there's a community out there of people who've been in these moments and found ways to act. And it's got stories, so little storytelling and a lot of empowerment.
Oh,
Julia,
thank you.
thank you. I hope you find some moments to rest. Are you exhausted or are you enjoying book tour?
Um, it really kicks off on Monday, so I'm trying
We're
to spend
early.
the weekend napping in advance.
Okay, good. Power naps. I'm giving you a prescription for all weekend power naps.
Thank you.
Uh, and I'm excited. You can pre-order the book right now. It's already available on Amazon and Goodreads. I'm a big fan of promoting Goodreads, which supports
Good.
independent bookstores. Um, Anything you want folks to know?
I guess I would just say, like, there's really hope. I think that, this book, reporting it made me into what I call a hope truther, which is just like,
Yeah.
I see everything through the wins. We are winning more than we think, right? We boycotted Tesla, and it was so dire that Elon Musk had to leave the government. We boycotted Avelo Airlines. They stopped doing ICE deportation flights. Minneapolis drove ICE out of their town. Like,
Oh, we
we
didn't even talk about them. Yeah, Minneapolis is the case study.
Right,
Just
but
neighbors gathering.
this is happening over and over, like, we are doing resistance right, we need just more of it, and everybody needs to participate.
Great. Julia, thank you.
Thank you.
Again, the book is On Courage: How to Be a Dissident in an Age of Fear, and I will link to it in the newsletter. Let's talk again soon.
I look forward to it.
Thanks. Okay, everyone. Let's see, how do we do this? Okay, I am going to share this out in the newsletter, put it on YouTube, all over Instagram, so you can rewatch, gain more insights, and definitely follow Julia's work. And I will be back soon with all your latest news. Okay, bye.